Kenyan youth are increasingly disengaging from politics, with social media echo chambers potentially silencing their voices. We explore how this trend affects the future of Kenyan democracy. A surge in illicit drug trafficking is hitting Kenya hard, threatening public health and safety. Efforts to combat this issue are underway. As online threats rise, concerns about child and safety on digital platforms grow. What measures can parents take to protect their children? Advocates push for stronger human rights protections in Kenya amidst ongoing challenges. How will these efforts shape the country's future? Hello and welcome to Kenya Today Unfiltered. I am your host Felicia, bringing you stories from Kenya and across the globe. We are live with you for the next 25 minutes and join us on our social media platforms using the hashtag Kenya Today Unfiltered. Our top story today, youth disillusionment, is on the rise in Kenyan politics. Many young people feel disconnected from the political processes due to social media echo chambers that amplify certain voices while silencing others. This trend raises questions about how effective young people can engage in shaping their country's future. We invite you to join this conversation on our social media platforms using the hashtag Kenya Today Unfiltered. Now let's cross over to our correspondent Isaac Miner with more on this issue.
Kenya is witnessing a growing trend of disillusionment among its youth. Despite being more educated than previous generations, many young Kenyans feel disconnected from politics due to high unemployment rates and perceived corruption. Social media has become both a tool for mobilization and an echo chamber that can amplify or silence voices.
It's actually more enhanced as someone that is not Kenyan, so I can see whatever it is that people are posting on social media and I engage more with it. So I wouldn't say that there's any hindrance of any point. Maybe ignored, I would say ignored, because I'll give an example of my country, DRC. We post a lot of things that have to do with like the ongoing war, and it feels like we're not being heard. So I would say mostly ignored, if not silenced, because if we're silenced, then we wouldn't have anything to say about what's going on.
You can see what's largely pushed on social media platforms. One, what's the most commonly used social media platform, especially by youth in the age demographic you want to look at, and see what content are they consuming compared to what content are they putting out, and then see if there are any parallels you can draw between the two. You'll be able to see, for example, if the narrative being pushed out on social media, such as TikTok and Twitter, is against government or against democracy or against voting, and then people are often posting or hopping onto trends that advocate for the same, then most likely this pushes youth more towards disengagement from politics, away from voting and the likes. But if the opposite is true, the content online is more inclined to voting, active participation in democratic rights, in governance, leadership, then more often than not, that's exactly what the youth will be steered towards. So data can be used to sort of analyze this kind of trends, see any similarities, and be able to make more informed decisions on the content to be put out, the kind of advertisements to be made, notices to be made.
According to recent surveys, over 70% of young Kenyans believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. The economy, corruption, and unemployment are top concerns for this demographic. However, despite these grievances, youth participation in politics has declined significantly over the past decade.
I've written a book called Breaking the Barriers, and in that Breaking the Barriers, I've talked to a girl child, telling them what they should do, and they should trust in God. They should not believe in networks, because if you have the values and you have an idea of how to maneuver some problems, it is very hard to be cheated. So even when you're passionate about achieving your goal, or you're passionate about growing through the ladder, like you young people now, you are able to keep your values, maybe make the right decisions.
Let us not wait things to get bad. Let us participate when people are either doing the right thing or planning to do the wrong thing.
I participated in online activism before. This was last year. during that period for the Finance Bill 2024, around June 25th, during that time. Really what motivated me as a young person was because I saw we really had a lot of things to fix with the economy, and we needed to voice out our concerns to a point like what we were talking about was not being heard, and we had to now take a step further, get into online spaces, get into demonstrations, use every way possible.
We're joined live by Isaac Miner, who has been following this story closely. Isaac, what do you think drives this sense of disillusionment among Kenyan youth?
Well, it's majorly driven by economic hardships and lack of employment opportunities. Many feel that despite of their education levels, they may not have been represented well in decision-making process or provided with meaningful employment opportunities.
That makes sense given the statistics showing high unemployment rates. How do you see social media influencing these sentiments?
Well, social media platforms have not only empowered young people to express their views, but also provided certain echo chambers where certain views can dominate and others marginalized.
Thank you, Isaac Miner, for your wonderful insights on reporting this issue. It is clear that young people in Kenya are facing serious challenges, and their voices will be crucial in shaping our country's future.
Thank you, Felicia.
Welcome to our special report analysis, where we take a closer look at the issues shaping today's discussion. Today, we're focusing on the growing disillusionment among Kenyan youth and what can be done to address it. Now joining us is Evelyn Monica, Corporate Affairs Manager from the Kenya Broadcasting Corporations. Thank you for being with us.
I'm Evelyn Mwakina. I'm the Corporate Affairs Manager, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. And I joined KBC some 34 years ago as a translator.
What do you think is the primary reason that the Kenya youth are disengaging from politics? And how has this trend evolved over time?
I start by saying that many young people feel like politics is a game for the older generation and that their voices don't count. And from the word go, I should say that they do count because the future is theirs. And therefore, over time, frustrations has grown due to unfulfilled promises, corruption, maybe lack of real change. And that's why I think we saw the Gen Zs come on board. Youth were at forefront because they had hope. The genuine concern from the young people, from where I sit, the way I see them, is that they have not received anything. They don't see leaders addressing their struggles, such as unemployment, education access.
Finally, what role do you think education and civic engagement programs could play in reigniting the political participation among Kenyan youth?
Indeed, education is very key. So when young people understand how government policies work, how it affects their lives, and what it can do to open doors and opportunities, great opportunities which lie ahead of them, learn and because there are no shortcuts, they have to have it in their fingertips. Schools should teach not just history, but also they should be practical in civic education, how to vote, question leaders, and push policies that matter to them.
Thank you, Evelyn Monica, for your wonderful insights. This conversation highlights the need for more inclusive engagement with young people and solutions to bridge the gap. That wraps up our special report analysis. Stay with us for more news after this break. Our next developing story exposes a disturbing trend: the rise of drug distribution through social media networks targeting young Kenyans. These platforms meant for connection and community are becoming a marketplace for illicit drug substances, putting our youth at grave risk. Join us on our social media platforms using the hashtag #KenyaDrugWatch, and let's share our insights and solutions to combat this menace.
Social media promised to connect us, but now it's also connecting drug dealers with vulnerable young Kenyans. The ease and anonymity of these platforms have created a dark market where drugs are just a click away. From WhatsApp groups to Instagram pages, dealers are using coded language and emojis to sell everything from marijuana to prescription pills. The anonymity makes it difficult for law enforcement to track and shut down these operations.
I'm a recovering addict, and my recovery started in 2022 after my treatment. I was addicted to alcohol and marijuana, and I would personally advise anyone who is struggling with drugs to seek help, because drugs usually affect your mental state, your physical state, and also your relationship. Could be with friends, family, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I'd just advise anyone who's struggling to seek help, because that's the only way that you can overcome the addiction.
But it's not just about law enforcement. Experts say we need to empower our youth with media literacy skills so they can recognize and resist these harmful influences.
We hold some health education camps, but the problem is they're mostly physical, and the community that is currently abusing drugs is online platform based. So I think if we also start online platforms to educate people about drug abuse, it would help a lot. I think the most commonly used drugs right now are alcohol, weed, and tobacco, but cocaine is becoming a menace right now, because even the patients that we have that I've met are suffering a lot of withdrawals, especially from cocaine, and it's a very hard drug to recover from.
There could also be that child who is coming from a background that is so deprived, that is so gullible, becomes vulnerable to the peddler. And the person who you're fearing the drugs for eventually wants you to start taking, to appreciate the value of what you're doing. So there is again the socioeconomic factor. There could be the spiritual. There is the social factor. There is this parent. So it's it's not one thing. It's not one reason that one can attribute it to. But at the end of the day, we must find a solution, because truly it is here with us.
The drug crisis among Kenyan youth is being fueled by the dark underbelly of social media. We must act now with both enforcement and education to protect our young people from this growing threat. Felicia reporting for Kenya Today, Unfiltered.
We take a closer look at the growing concern surrounding online drug distribution and its impact on the youth. With social media playing a crucial role in both the spread and prevention of this issue, we analyze the challenges and solutions in tackling this crisis. Joining me now is an analyst to dissect these key issues.
Hi, my name is Kiplagat. I'm a level 5 medical student of medicine at the University of Nairobi. Apart from just studying medicine, I also enjoy other things outside of that, like music, social work, volunteering, advocacy, those sorts of things. Yeah.
What are the most common health complications you've observed in your patients who have been affected by this illicit drug trafficking, and how are these issues being addressed in the healthcare setting?
One of the most common features I have noticed when it comes to the side effects of drugs is that most of the patients end up having either long-term mental or physical health complications. When people think of drugs, they think of things like cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines, which do have their long-term health effects, including giving organ problems like heart problems, kidney problems, and lung problems as well. But I think a part that's not really talked about a lot is the mental health effects that are quite a few. During my time at Mathare Hospital, I was able to see quite a few patients who had severe side effects from drug abuse, which resulted in them having psychotic episodes, other mental illnesses that were developing from that. So it's unfortunate that so many people out here who use these drugs are unaware of the risks that it poses to you. And some things, especially like mental health, are very difficult to manage, and they require quite a bit of time with help from the psychiatrists, of course, to help the patients get back to some level of normalcy.
How do you think the stigma surrounding the drug trafficking affects the ability of healthcare workers to effectively treat and care for individuals struggling with substance abuse in Kenya?
Stigma plays a big role because for those who do abuse drugs, most of society looks at them like they are to blame for what they are doing. Of course, that they are not thinking properly, or they are not able to operate normally like everyone else. So whatever happens because of their drug use is upon them. And I think that also hinders the support that can be given to them, because the drug abuse, as much a society problem as it is a personal problem. Studies have shown that for those who tend to abuse drugs, the cause of drug abuse is more often than not to cope with a problem somewhere else. So whether it is pressure to perform, whether in society or in relationships, or whether it's a lack of something, maybe it could be a lack of approval, lack of support, lack of success anywhere. So you find that these people tend to turn towards drugs. And for that, you find such people who end up falling down that hole are unable to find systems of support around them. And so it becomes that much more difficult to rehabilitate them and get them out of the difficult situations that they are in. That being said, there are some people for who it is decisions that they have made against advice. And for them, the job becomes to help them realize the mistakes that they have made. And then that way they're able to actually work on themselves and be able to get out of that space.
What role do you believe healthcare professionals should play in advocating for policy changes or community programs aimed at reducing drug trafficking and substance abuse?
I think for healthcare professionals, the best way that we can contribute is by primarily making people aware of the negative side effects they are at risk of when they engage in substance abuse, because I think these days it's been made very common, made to seem like it's a recreative thing rather than something that is actually putting your health at risk. So there's that aspect of having very many people making it seem normal, making it seem like it's casual, and you have to really do the public education of making them aware of what they're getting into. I remember having a conversation with someone who was asking me the difference between smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and how that affects your lungs. And he was convinced that smoking weed is better because it doesn't have any tobacco or nicotine, which he has heard is bad for your lungs and actually contributes towards lung cancer. So he was right in a sense, but he was also not correct because he had been justifying his use of weed with a bit of information that was true. So as healthcare professionals, I think we have to really demystify the recreational use of drugs out here and actually inform people of the negative side effects that they're putting themselves at risk.
Thank you so much for your insights. It is clear that tackling this crisis requires a multifaceted approach from both our government, stakeholders, law enforcement, and community engagement. Up next, we turn our attention to another critical issue affecting our youth, child safety online. Stay with us as we explore the risks and what can be done to protect our children after this short break. Welcome back to Kenya Today Unfiltered. Our next story highlights a critical issue affecting the Kenyan youth today: cyber safety. As online platforms become increasingly integral to our daily lives, cases of harassment and exploitations are on the rise. These are threatening the well-being of our youth today. We explore how community action and awareness can make a difference. Join us on our social media platforms using the hashtag CyberSafetyKenya. Share your thoughts and experiences.
Spaces meant for connection have become breeding grounds for harassment. In Kenya, young people are increasingly vulnerable to cyberbullying, defamation, and exploitation.
Being bullied online, or like once I post a picture on Instagram, there's some rude comments. Yeah. My friends and I go through cyberbullying or like bullying us online.
Most important thing for this collaborative approach is open communication, which is something which you don't tend to see much because we have different views from different generations. It's very difficult for a child to come and approach the parents about very difficult conversations, drugs, sex, all these things that, happen in life. So for that to actually happen, both generations need to come together and strike a balance.
We have people that are known as influencers on social media, and so people that are within their age range are looking to them in terms of lifestyle, even to the little things like how to dress, what to eat. So it is possible that they are influenced because by the influencers because they're looking to these people for a blueprint of their lives. So yeah, I would say that it is possible that my peers are being influenced by social media through influencers.
I do know someone who's experienced online harassment. So basically, some of her videos, which were deepfake, were put out online, and there was so much after that. Like there was bullying. So many people would want to get access to her and just harass her in different ways. In my personal opinion, I don't think schools are doing enough. I know there's a Cyber Act of 2018 put in the Constitution, but it's not enough. We need more programs that speak on these issues. We need more forums where people can plug into it and understand, one, what online safety is and how to go about it.
A recent study found that over 64% of female students experience some form of online violence compared to about 35% of male students. This disparity highlights how gender plays a significant role in who is targeted.
I know a friend who has, and I think when she went through it, she had a really tough time. But what I'd advise is that it was mostly about social media. She had a story on the social media, and obviously people get to comment about it, and you can't control that. But what I'd advise is that you do more research on a certain topic before you put it out in the media. I think that's the best thing. And if that happens to, I think just go get like counseling or therapy. I think it's healthy. Yeah.
The fight against cyber harassment requires collective action, legislative support, with combined community-driven initiatives that aims at empowering youth with digital-driven skills. I'm Christina Tieno, reporting from Nairobi.
In today's special report analysis, we examine the growing concerns around digital safety for young people, facilitated by technology. With online spaces playing a crucial role in the empowerment and exploitation, we look at the measures that have been put in place and what more can be done to protect vulnerable groups. Now joining us is Joy Wanyika, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya from Triple OK Law. Thank you for joining us.
So yeah, hi guys, my name is Joy Doreen Wanyika. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and I work at Triple OK Law Advocates.
What are the most significant ethical and legal challenges in protecting children and youth from online threats? And how are the existing laws addressing these risks?
So when we talk about ethical and legal challenges facing the youth, so ethical, let's start with the most common one, that is cyberbullying. Then the second most common one, according to me, is online grooming, where most people are basing their lives on what they've seen. So it tends to change perspective about how things are. On the legal side, everything that covers the legal side is the data privacy law. So when it comes to the legal side, there's data privacy. Then the other ones fit into it. When you talk about the law that actually governs all these things that we're talking about, there's the Cyber, Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Acts, which basically covers how content is shared, limiting the age of people who can actually view certain things. And then now when we talk about the limiting, can go now to the Children's Act, because the Children's Act do provide for the things that children cannot see and what they cannot see. Generally, the biggest law is the Constitution of Kenya, which governs all these things, and these other things just come into it.
How can parents and guardians strike a balance between safeguarding their children online while still respecting their digital privacy, especially in an era of increasing internet dependence?
So first of all, I think it's important to note the difference in the age gap between these two generations. And both generations have different ways of how they perceive information and how they perceive life. So I think the first thing that parents and children should do is actually first approach it through a collaborative approach, whereby you put your ideas from your different generation and then you also put the ideas from the different generation. And once they come in together, able to talk about these things through and through. And I think the most important thing for this collaborative approach is open communication, which is something which you don't tend to see much because we have different views from different generations. It's very difficult for a child to come and approach the parents about very difficult conversations, drugs, sex, all these things that, happen in life. So for that to actually happen, both generations need to come together and strike a balance, whereby you bring your ideas, I bring my ideas, we meet in the middle, and that's where the collaborative approach comes through. And with that, we'll be able to actually talk about so many different things, enable us even learn from different generations. I mean, that's where the whole reverse mentorship comes from. I learn from you, learn from me, and at the end of the day, we're able to live in a very collaborative environment.
What legal responsibilities do tech companies and social media platforms have in ensuring a safer online environment for minors? And are current regulations sufficient to hold them accountable?
Okay, so tech companies and generally just companies that deal with tech and social media are first guided by the Constitution of Kenya, which provides for data privacy because every human being has a right. When you first talk about the Constitution, there are the laws that come under the Constitution. So now that's how we talk about the Data Privacy Act. It's a very broad act that I think people need to read because it governs a lot, everything to do with from how you speak, what you post, what you comment, everything is governed by the Data Privacy Act. And from the Data Privacy Act, now that's where we also talk about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act. They are both intertwined because they talk about how to regulate the media space, social media space, and that's how tech companies are governed. Unfortunately, most of us really don't have an idea or clue about what goes in those acts, and that's very unfortunate. But everything you say, everything you comment, everything you do, everything you post is governed by this act, and every negative thing that you do based on what you're posting has a repercussion behind it, and this is what governs these organizations and these companies. Yeah.
Thank you, Joy Wanyika, for your valuable insights. It is clear that addressing these challenges requires a collaborative approach involving the policymakers, educators, as well as families. That wraps up our special report analysis. Stay tuned for more updates. Our final developing stories explore how the dual nature of digital platforms in Kenya act as a powerful tool for social justice and arenas for harassment and abuse against marginalized communities. We examine how digital activism amplifies voices while facing challenges from online abuse. Join the conversation on all our social media platforms using the hashtag #KenyaTodayUnfiltered.
Digital platforms have empowered Kenyans to mobilize around social causes, but they also expose marginalized communities to increased risks of online harassment. In recent protests, Gen Z activists leveraged social media to organize nationwide demonstrations, forcing policy changes by translating online momentum into real-world action. However, this same space is fraught with challenges like cyberbullying and hate speech.
I think young people, we do have a big role promoting the human rights and all these things to do with activism, mainly because we have a better understanding of the digital space, and we also understand the algorithms and how it works. So I think we have an upper hand on how we can use such tools to actually promote good governance, stop femicide, improve the education of.
If there's a collaboration between the government and the civil organizations, it's going to be a smoother process to actually come out and identify who did this, what did this, and who did this.
In today's special report analysis, we dive into the complex issue of online harassment and its impact, particularly on marginalized groups. As digital spaces become increasingly more accessible and central to our lives, striking a balance between protecting users and preserving free speech remains a challenge. Today, we explore the possible solutions and the role of education in creating a safer online environment. Now joining us is Joy Wanyika, advocate for the High Court of Kenya from Triple OK Law. Thank you for being with us. What are the key human rights issues facing Kenya, and how are they affecting the different segments of the population?
The most pressing issues affecting the human rights sector, I'll start with police brutality, which most of us have actually experienced it, especially during the mandamanos and all that stuff. Then there's also gender-based violence, which actually both of them are sort of intertwined because always one thing leads to another, and that's also something huge that's actually really affecting us as a country. Then there's also lack of freedom of speech, which is also something that's intertwined with the previous two. So it basically revolves around those three key issues for me. And I think the community that's actually affected the most is not really the middle class or upper class, it's the lower class. Because when anything goes wrong, they're the first people who actually get the hit of it. I think it's time we actually think about protecting the lower class, because if anything goes wrong, they're the first people who get really affected, and they're the ones who actually need to not be affected by these things, who's already actually going through other sort of things. So yeah, I'll talk about police brutality, gender-based violence, lack of access to information, lack of freedom of speech. And yeah, those are the main pressing issues affecting the human rights sector right now.
What are the specific actions that human rights advocates are pushing for, and how has the government or any other institutions responded?
Human rights advocates are basically pushing for police accountability and government accountability. And I think they're intertwined because, I mean, us as Gen Z, actually, we've seen these things happening over the past couple of months, whereby people have been shot during like protests, during all these mandamanos, yet there's no accountability. No one is coming forward and saying, okay, yes, this and this happened, this person has been found liable. But that's what we are pushing for. We want people to come out and tell them, okay, this happened, and this person has been held accountable. And that's what human rights advocates are actually pushing for: accountability, transparency, coming and telling us, okay, this and this and this happened. And these things should be done through the police act, through the Kenya Police Enforcement. I know there's IPOA, which is the Independent Police Oversight Authority, which is supposed to actually overlook these things and actually say, okay, this and this happened on this particular day. What are we doing to hold these people accountable? But other than the government itself, there are other different organizations that are actually doing this. These are civil organizations like Amnesty. There is Kenya Human Rights Commission. They're coming out here and trying to hold different individuals in different parts of the Kenya accountable for these things. And I think that if there's a collaboration between the government and these civil organizations, it's going to be a smoother process to actually come out and identify who did this, what did this, and who did this. So yeah, as the human rights advocates, yeah, that's what they're pushing for: accountability, transparency, holding people accountable for their actions, telling us what actually really happened. Yeah, and that's my take on that question.
Thank you, Joy Wanyika, for sharing your insights on this important topic. It is clear that addressing online harassment requires a multifaceted approach involving policy reforms, technological solutions, and education. As we navigate these challenges, continuous discussions and actions prevail. And this will be key in making digital spaces safer for everyone. That wraps up our special report analysis. Stay tuned for more news with us. Thank you for joining us today at Kenya Today Unfiltered. For more updates next week, subscribe now and catch us on our social media platforms using the hashtag Kenya Today Unfiltered. Our next episode explores smart city solutions in addressing Nairobi's housing crisis. Stay informed and stay engaged. As we close this episode, remember that resilience is not just about enduring, but about rising stronger together.